When you think of the legendary figures in the world of Westeros, few names carry as much weight and honor as Ser Duncan the Tall. He was a man who rose from the gutters of Flea Bottom to become the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and the personal protector of a king. But his end was not a quiet one, and it certainly was not peaceful. The death of Ser Duncan the Tall is tied to one of the most mysterious and horrific events in the history of House Targaryen, the tragedy at Summerhall. To understand how Duncan died, we have to look at the man he had become. If we look at the Game of Thrones series, the man has been mentioned several times. In the 4th season, King Joffrey is seen flipping through the Book of Brothers, which records the deeds of every Kingsguard knight. He mocks Jaime Lannister for having a nearly empty page, while he praises the 4 pages of accomplishments written for Ser Duncan the Tall. Later, in the series finale, Brienne of Tarth is seen looking at those same pages. While the show hasn't given us a flashback to Summerhall, the lore remains consistent. Duncan is remembered as a hero of the highest order. By the time of his death, Duncan was no longer the young, lanky hedge knight wandering the Reach with a boy named Egg. He was an old man, a seasoned warrior, and the most trusted friend of King Aegon V. Aegon, whom we know as Egg, had spent his reign trying to help the small folk, but he faced constant resistance from the High Lords of the realm. Eventually, Aegon became convinced that the only way to force the Lords to accept his reforms and bring peace to the 7 kingdoms was to bring back dragons. The pursuit of these dragons is what led everyone to Summerhall in the year 259 after conquest. Summerhall was a lightly fortified castle used by the Targaryens as a vacation spot in the Dornish marches. Aegon gathered his family and his closest advisors there to celebrate the upcoming birth of his great-grandson, Rhaegar Targaryen. But the celebration was a cover for something much darker. Aegon intended to perform a ritual to hatch 7 dragon eggs he had recovered. This was not just a simple fire. It involved pyromancers, sorcery, and vast quantities of wildfire. In the books, specifically in the world of Ice and Fire, the details are intentionally blurred. The Maester writing the history claims that a page of his record was blotted with ink, leaving the exact sequence of events a mystery. However, we get enough clues to piece together a terrifying scene. The wildfire grew out of control, and the flames became so hot they turned the castle into a furnace. As the building began to collapse and the green flames of wildfire consumed everything, Ser Duncan the Tall did what he always did. He put his life on the line to save others. The records suggest that while the king and his eldest son, Prince Duncan the Small, perished in the fire, the death toll would have been much higher if not for the valor of the Lord Commander. It is widely believed by fans, and supported by the text, that Ser Duncan used his massive strength and his final moments to pull people out of the inferno. He is credited with saving Princess Rhaegar and the newborn Prince Rhaegar. This means that Duncan's final act was ensuring the survival of the Targaryen bloodline that would eventually lead to Jon Snow. There is a popular theory that Duncan the Tall might have even held up a falling roof or a massive door with his bare shoulders to allow the pregnant Rhaegar to escape. He died as he lived, a true knight who didn't need a fancy title or a highborn name to do the right thing. Tragedy is even more bitter when you realize the relationship between Duncan and the king. They had traveled the world together. Duncan had taught Aegon how to be a person before he learned how to be a king. To see his best friend's obsession with dragons lead to such a horrific disaster must have been heartbreaking. Some fans believe that Duncan might have even tried to stop the ritual when he saw how dangerous it was becoming, but by then it was too late. The wildfire was already hungry. The books hint that the tragedy at Summerhall was so traumatic that the survivors rarely spoke of it. It left a scar on the Targaryen family that never truly healed. In A Dance of the Dragons book, while in Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen asks Ser Barristan Selmy what became of the Wood's Witch who foretold that the prince that was promised would be born from her mother and father's line. Ser Barristan tells her only Summerhall in a voice of doom. Later, Barristan thinks of the marital choices of the sons of King Aegon V, which led to treason and turmoil, ending at Summerhall in sorcery, fire, and grief. In the book A Feast for Crows, while in Bravos, Maester Aemon mentions to Samwell Tarly that he once thought that Rhaegar could be the prince that was promised due to the smoke from the fire that devoured Summerhall on the day of Rhaegar's birth, and the salt from the tears shed for those who died, a reference to the born amidst salt and smoke, part of the prophecy. Rhaegar Targaryen, who was born as the castle burned, grew up with a strange obsession with the ruins. He would often go there alone to play his harp and sleep under the stars, surrounded by the ghosts of his family and the man who saved his life. Also in A Storm of Swords, while encamped outside of Yunkai, Arstan Whitebeard tells Daenerys Targaryen that her brother Rhaegar was considered melancholic at times, that he had a sense of doom. Dany recalls that her brother Viserys had spoken of Rhaegar's birth only once. She wonders to herself if perhaps the tale had saddened Viserys too much. Dany asks Arstan if it was the shadow of Summerhall that haunted Rhaegar. Arstan tells her yes, but that Summerhall was the place that the prince loved best. After the death of Aegon V in the fire, his son Jaehaerys took the throne, but was heavily traumatized by the deaths of his father and older brother. He ruled for 3 years before dying prematurely. His son Aerys succeeded him and became King Aerys II. What makes the tragedy of Summerhall and Duncan's death so brutal isn't just the fire, it's the loss of a man who represented the absolute best of what a knight could be. To die in a magical accident caused by the hubris of the friend he loved most is a heavy ending for such a pure character. George R.R. Martin has promised that he will eventually write about Summerhall in the final Dunk and Egg novellas. He has teased that the ending is already planned and that it will be a tearjerker. We know the destination, but we don't know the full journey yet. What we do know is that Ser Duncan the Tall didn't die in a glorious battle on a field with banners flying. He died in a smoky, screaming hellscape of green fire, sacrificing his last breath to make sure a child could be born. When you look back at his life, from the slums of King's Landing to the white cloak of the Kingsguard, his death at Summerhall serves as the ultimate proof of his character. He was Dunk the Lunk, thick as a castle wall, and in the end, he became the wall that stood between his family and the flames. It is a haunting conclusion to a legendary life, and it reminds us that in the world of ice and fire, even the greatest heroes are not safe from the consequences of Targaryen ambition. I want to hear from you in the comments section down below. Do you think King Aegon was wrong to risk everything for the return of dragons, or was the tragedy at Summerhall just a horrible accident that could have changed the world for the better? If you found the story of Ser Duncan's final sacrifice as moving as I did, make sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. We have a lot more ground to cover, from the secrets of the Blackfire rebellions to the mysterious origins of the White Walkers. You won't want to miss the next chapter as we continue to peel back the layers of history in the Seven Kingdoms. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.